Okay, well, peace, family. Peace, family. I have a very special episode for you all today as we continue the conversation around men in this men series, and we love and we're supporting on them. Today's guest really just needs no introduction, but definitely deserves reverence. He is a visionary, he's a thought leader, he's a master of high level dialogue. Easily has become one of the most influential voices in modern Black thought. And as the architect of high level conversations movement, he's been consistently bridging the gap between what I like to think is ancient wisdom and futuristic thinking. And so to me, the mission remains clear, which has been to awaken that inner man and to empower a global culture to heal and to think at a higher frequency. And so I just want to welcome to the Healing Social Men series, Brother 19 Keys. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much for being here with us. You know, we've been curating this conversation around the men and understanding the inner man and what men go through, right? Because there's a lot that we find men are struggling with or men are looking forward to, or just a lot within that inner man that is not necessarily comfortable for men to speak on, and not necessarily. I don't know if there's always the words, or a platform for that to be had. And so, this has been a very, very special segment to me as we sit down and we watch men heal out loud by just telling stories, telling a little bit about themselves and about their lives. And I love to think of it as just kind of ancestral storytelling so that we build and gather community in a way. And so I'd love to just kind of dive into why this is important and to really talk about like masculinity and mental health and spiritual growth from your perspective. Before we get into all of that, though, I am so curious as to how 19 Keys becomes a thought leader. Like, how do we get 19 Keys in the same conversation or the same sentence as the words thought leader and, visionary? How did 19 Keys get here?
Mm. By the grace of God, I would say. I started off. I was born in St. Louis around the age of 1 or 2. I moved to Oakland, California, right, with my parents. I say I moved; they moved me, right. Uh, but I grew up in an environment that was a Black Muslim household, very intellectual household. My mother and my father are both very intellectual. My mother was a school teacher. My father was essentially a head of an organization. It was like this Black Muslim organization that was also a entrepreneurial enterprise. There was bakeries, there was security companies, there was private education schools, things of that nature. And then there was also, this very militant and street dynamic side that was also coexisting. And so my father, he would be considered the captain of this organization, right? Almost this paramilitary mafia, Muslim mafia, if you and so growing up just in that environment, I think I was always destined to be different than the environment that we grew up in and what we typically see in culture. While most people may have to read about Malcolm X or the Black Panthers in a book, I lived in an environment since a child that I grew up in an environment seeing Black men with money and power, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, it wasn't about learning Black history, you understand me, or some African American studies. It was my childhood. You understand me? And I also seen those places thrive and I seen them fall, right? And I learned the same reasons why they was able to thrive, and also understood why they failed in the first place, right? And understanding that a lot of those things came from within versus outside, even though there was a lot of preach about the enemy outside, it was really about the enemy within that was the issue, right?
Mhm.
And so growing up as a young man, also growing up in the streets of St. Louis and the streets of Oakland, I was able to get a very interesting dynamic on, a perspective on, and wear many different hats as a Black man growing up, right? And so I would say you get 19 keys because I've been through all of the myriad of experiences and the spectrum of it that as a Black man in America give me a level of complexity that I believe allowed me to have a certain insight that was only possible by going through and surviving those experiences and coming out on the other end with the lessons saying, okay, how do we take the good, right, from the bad, right? And then how do we rebirth that into today's culture so that we can protect what we build and it can last longer this time?
Amazing. You said something so key because what you've just described is this kind of this black affluential community, and you said I saw how it worked, but I also saw how it fell. When you say you saw how it fell, can you highlight what that means?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the forefront there was ego,
Okay.
distrust, disunity. I think it was, the human nature of men when they get power, right? And power is a very dangerous substance for one to yield,
Mm,
right? Anytime somebody wants power too much, that's a flaw within themselves, right?
mm,
Depending on the reason you want power, because some men want power to cover up their insecurities, right? And so that means that you have an insecure man that is wielding power, right? And so I think that we live in a world now where everybody wants to be famous, influential, which is another form of power, the will to power, but it doesn't always require morality,
mm.
right? Similar to capitalism. Why do we want capitalism, right? Why do we believe being capitalist is the thing that will save us? It won't. Capitalism doesn't work for us in that capacity. Only our righteousness will save us, right?
Yes.
And I don't proclaim to be some perfect saint, pastor, or preacher, but it doesn't mean that I don't have a perfect knowledge of knowing what's right and not striving to go towards that element. So I seen men, being destroyed because of the flaws that they had, right, and the ego that they had, and I seen murder, death. You understand me? I seen men, catch cases, right, and again, I seen it was their demons that destroyed what they built.
That's so interesting. It's so interesting when you proclaim that as power being the reason behind it because I'm a woman, so I don't know what it's like to grow up as a man or to be told what it is to be a man. But when I've heard anything, right? I've heard some men proclaim manhood as equaling power. You know what I mean? And so, to hear you say that alone could be the downfall, and righteousness is needed in sin is a little revolutionary for me to hear that again, right? Because you always think manhood equals power or affluence or money or wealth. Um, I'd love to tie that in. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to speak on that. I think manhood, being a man, right, is something that you earn, right? It's not something that's given. It's not something that's inherited, right? And every young male doesn't get to become a man. They don't, right? There's a rites of passage that must happen in order for you to become a man. You can be seen as one. You can have the aesthetic of a man, right? But that doesn't mean that you are one. And I think that what happened in society is that we falsely title a lot of young men as grown men, right? The black man is always seen that way. He's seen as this strong man that should be able to handle and do all things. But today's young black man, oftentimes, right, is infantile in his actual mind, right? So even though he may have the physical attributes and features of a grown man, he might not always have the actual mind. And man is his mind, right? And so in order to be a grown man, you have to develop a grown mind, the ability to be able to um, think, right? A man is intellectual, right? Before there's anything physical whatsoever into manhood, it is all intellectual. It is all about his ability to think. That's why the strongest one is not the one with the greatest physical strength, but the greatest mental and spiritual strength. That is the one that can rule all. He rules the one that is strong, right? If that was the case, if that was the requirement for manhood, then black men would rule the world today because
Mhm.
we are the strongest, we are the most athletically capable, we are the most desired. But those are not things of manhood, those are childish things. The real men are the ones who think for the world and execute those thoughts unto reality.
So key. So key. So, what would you say to men who, let's say, they are of adult age, but maybe that rite of passage hasn't necessarily been in their path yet? So, how does one say, okay, I'm ready to move into that space? I'm ready to, how do I build that spiritual connection or the intellectual capacity? Or, what would you say to someone looking or searching for what's next for them?
I would say first, don't search for anything, don't chase for anything, right? And being who you are is a stillness. It's not a search, it's not a pursuit. It's not a car, it's not a job, it's not a title, it's not a relationship. It's a stillness within, right? When you develop a level of confidence in being yourself, right? And that willfulness to be yourself, that's when you start to become and remind yourself who you are, right? It's very key because self knowledge is that key that opens up all doors for you. People ask me all the time, Keys, how are you so confident? Right? I don't think about being confident, I just be myself. And
Mhm.
what they're saying is, how are you not allowing the world, right, to belittle you? How are you not shrinking when you go into spaces? But in order for me to shrink, I must have been a great size, right? So you already know that my original self is larger. And most people, they're just shrinking themselves to fit into boxes. People's expectations, opinions, feelings, egos, ideas of them, instead of remaining the same, right? And so what black men often do, and men, period, is cover it up with ego, right? Because you shrunk yourself, right now, ego is telling you to inflate yourself instead of just be yourself, right? And so I don't care whether you like me or dislike me or agree with me, disagree with me. To me, those are things that you have to deal with, not me,
Mhm.
right? I have one job, and that's just to be myself. And so as men, right, you gonna get there by being still and being comfortable within yourself. Not always chasing another thing, thinking that, oh, once I get this amount of money, I'll finally be accepted. I'll finally have the power. I will be more desirable to women. You understand me? More men will want to be like me. None of that matters because a lot of those men that have those things, they're still looking for themselves, right? And oftentimes, what they want is in someone who has less than them. They don't know it because these are attributes that you can't buy. You know what I'm saying? The greatest things in life you can't buy. So I think that when it's your time, you seek knowledge, right? And you go within, you sit still, you fast from the world, you let go of all of those things, right? And then you see what is actually real to you because it's okay to have taste in the finer things, right? But don't do it to try to feel your lack of. You understand me? Do it because it's fulfilling, it's a part of your nature, it's who you are, right? It's not greed or gluttony or any of those things that you're chasing. You just arrive to a level of self-awareness to where you know yourself. You go through training. A man can't know himself unless he works. It's that simple. You know what I
Wow.
mean? If a man is not working, he is not a man at all. That is a boy in disguise.
Mhm. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. I think there's a big shift that's happening, and at least in my perspective, I think there is a big shift that's happening where man has been connecting more and more spiritually back into themselves and to their God, to their divine. And I'm seeing men healing out loud and being okay with healing out loud now, whereas that's not necessarily been the case. It's been very silent on that front, right? I think as a woman, not all women always have an understanding of what a man goes through or just, you know, feelings, emotions, things of that nature, even being able to communicate those things. I see and I believe in your movement, I have seen that you feel healing is a generational strategy. And I just want to talk a little bit about that. Do you see emotional healing as a gateway to legacy, to generational, wellness? What are your thoughts about this?
I think it's a good question. I think though it's a double-edged sword.
Mm.
In war, we no doubt are in the war, right? It's multiple fronts that are happening all at once. If you are a general in war, do you want your soldiers healing or you want them fighting?
You want them fighting.
Yeah. So I think what happens is that, and this is why I say it's a double-edged sword. because of course the act of healing, the living in wellness is healing, right? When
Mhm.
we talk about wellness, it's not like the same way we talk about mental health. I think that these the conversations that we are having around them don't mean anything. We
Mm,
talk about mental health, and mental health has become a rising conversation, but the mental health in America has not changed. The numbers, the statistics are not getting better. Black
right.
men are talking about mental health, but is our actual mental health getting better? Or is it performative?
Mm,
A lot of these men, they talk about healing, but I just think that a person that's truly healed is not going to spend all day talking about something they already got over.
mm,
I don't believe that. I think that you exist in a space beyond that. I think a lot of it is performative and a lot of it is looking and seeking, right? And for more help and wanting to be seen now as this person that is healed, right? I think that there's something within that that is still wrong with that individual because they take on this healed identity, right? Which means you're still connecting to the trauma itself. You understand me? And you're trying to importancize your healing journey. And it's like, just be a human being. Just be
mm,
when we say just be a man, it's not meant to override all of your emotions or invalidate your feelings, right?
mm,
But at some point in time, a man that is consistently seeking emotion has something wrong with his emotional attachments. You understand me? Where he doesn't feel him acknowledging his own growth and his own healing is enough. He needs validation from the world, right? He needs to be seen as special from getting over his own scars. You're not special from healing your own scars. You're human for doing that,
mm,
right? And so things that should be normal, we are now categorizing as special. No, these things are not special. And I don't want you to feel like this is a destination. You understand me? It's just along the journey. And what we are talking about is healing is really just learning.
mm,
That's all it is. Because the only way to get past something is to learn. Whether it's in games, whether it's in school, you don't graduate or go to the next level until you learn what you did wrong, what you did right. And in that learning, it becomes neural adaptation, meaning that you develop new ways of thinking and new ways of being. Now you don't make those same mistakes. You don't enter into relationships with those same people, right? You don't do business the same way, right? You don't overspend the way you used to. You don't overeat the way you used to. You don't cope with things the same way, right? And so it's just learning. Otherwise, it becomes a cycle that is repeated over and over and over until you get the lesson. So,
mm,
as a man, you are supposed to learn. You don't get special cookies for that. You understand me? And so, I think if we replace that word healing with learning, we'll realize that we're uneducated on our pain and we're
mm,
uneducated on the root of that pain. And so, that's where I need men to move into be a learner, be intellectual. Yes, study yourself, study the knowledge of self, but move forward and move onward. Don't get stuck in this cycle of taking on these identities so that the world can recognize you as this healed being.
mm. That's so interesting, because it forces me to think about identity in general. And when you talk about your upbringing, it seems like there was this community, this structure, um, this education that was there for you to thrive within. And there's this question on like nature versus nurture.
Mm.
You know what I mean? For people who have the start of it, they're rooted in strong, you know, um, generational legacy and knowledge versus those who maybe are not. What are your thoughts on that for someone who says, "Well, I didn't necessarily grow up with intellectual parents and my community wasn't necessarily like that." What are your thoughts on that nature versus nurture conversation?
I think that's an excuse still. There's always going to be valid science to it, right? Because environment is stronger than nature. But here's the thing, even though I grew up in those spaces, I'm not giving you all of the dark side of it. You understand me? My father wasn't always there. He would disappear for years and just pop up back in our lives. You understand me? So I grew up more so with my older brother. Then my older brother was in the streets. He's locked up to this day in prison. You understand me? He keeps going back and forth because he's stuck in a cycle, right? And I miss him, but he's not the same person that I used to know. You understand? My other younger brother, he just got out of prison from serving a year bid. You understand me? I got another brother who just hit me the other day. He keep having epilepsy. You understand me? He's trying to get his mind. He just grateful just getting through it in a day. Right? Like I could go on and on and on and on. Before the age of 19, I probably lost almost 10 to 15 partners. You understand me? I had 3 to 4 cases growing up. You understand me? Just moving in and out the streets. Right. And so, again, when I talk about that environment that I grew up, I talk about that corruption because that environment no longer exists because it failed. And 99% of the people that I grew up with, they're not on the same journey like I am. So it wasn't just environment that made me who I am, it was decision. You understand me? Every man and woman gets to make a decision about who they are and stick with that decision and believe yourself regardless of what you go through. You understand me? Because a winner goes through losses, but they're still a winner. That's the difference. Some people go through losses and they see themselves as a loser. It's completely different. The moment you make it your identity, it becomes who you are forever.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are identifying themselves by their losses, by their pain, by their trauma. That becomes their identity. And so they're perpetually stuck as a victim. I've never in my life seen myself as a victim. And I hear people's trauma stories. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I can up your trauma stories by 20x. You understand me? But I'm not going to look like it. I'm not going to wear it on my sleeve. I'm not going to tell every person that I meet these things. I remember when I call him my favorite uncle. You understand me? This is somebody I seen growing up. He used to pick us up and he used to take us to the movies all the time. At the time we ate, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. He used to always take us there. I used to love seeing my uncle. He'd pull up to the door. You feel me? And I remember the next time I saw him, because he ended up losing his son to gun violence. You understand me? And the next time I saw him, he wasn't the same. He was a shadow of himself. By this time, he started doing heavy drugs, right? And we was all staying together one summer, and one time we got the call that, he was found dead on the train tracks. And I could probably go through stories like that just this whole entire interview. And I hear people with stories like that a lot about grandparents, about fathers, about mothers, about brothers, and I don't even got to go about the things that I personally went through. But it's like none of those things are a reason for me to stop. I seen a man that most likely did not have an ability to understand the darkness that he was going through. He was going through so much grief and pain that it became him. And he didn't know life outside of that pain. You understand me? And so that pain ended up engulfing him and it turned into his own demise, right? It became the spiral that you go down. And every time I looked at a situation like that, I wanted to always learn what was in it. What was in this situation that I can learn from so that I never go through it, right? And so a lot of people don't look at pain like that. I look at darkness as an arc, right? In the word dark, it's ARK, it's an arc. You understand me? When the world was going through dark times, what did Noah build? He built an ark to survive it. But it wasn't to stay on that ark forever. A darkness is a tunnel. It's something you go through, right? So when you go what they call the dark night of the soul, it's something when you lose something, a part of yourself or something you thought was a part of yourself. And it's hard to get that rhythm of life back again, right? It's hard to get it back to a harmonious life because that becomes a part of who you are now. And you don't know how to fill that gap from what you're missing. And so if you're not learning through that, if you're not going through a rebirth, you understand me, and willing to go through a proverbial death, you're going to end up going through a physical one because that pain is going to trap you into the trauma of that day recycling itself over and over and over. Right. And so for me, anytime I've been through a darkness, I just always sat down and I was asking for the lessons to learn. You understand me? And I was trying to figure out how do I get to the other side as quick as possible? Not by ignoring it, but by processing it. All right. And so processing something requires the bandwidth and the free space to be able to understand it. And from there, you move forward as a better, more empowered person.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So if you were to highlight maybe, and I won't even limit you, when you talk about processing and you talk about these tools of getting past this dark night of the soul, right? And getting through that. I mean, what does 19 keys say as a man? Here's some necessary things that as a man, if you're looking to process, if you're looking to get on others, if you're looking to learn well. I heard you talk about fasting before, and I heard you talk about this leading to neural pathways, regenerating and having new neural pathways. And so if you were to talk to someone who's very green in this space, what would you identify would be some key things for them to consider?
Yes, yes, that's a good question. I would say is just somebody that's going through trauma, going through darkness or a dark night of the soul. Again, some of the first things is to find a new rhythm in life, right? Most of it is that when we get rid of one thing, our body, our soul craves harmony. You understand me in life. And so what we are really trying to do is fill that gap. If you lose a friend, then you're going to want to be around other people that make you feel social. You lose a relationship, it's going to make you want to go out drink because your body is trying to get used to this imbalance that it has now. And so I think the first thing is fasting because fasting allows you to know what you need and what you don't need. You understand me? When you get rid of the things that you're just doing because you're used to them, right? The things that we eat. If I told everybody, listen, let's fast and let's get rid of sugar for this week, it's gonna be very hard because your body is going to crave it. And some people got parasites, and a parasites is going to crave it. But the thing is, when you start fasting, you start feeling better. You're not going to stop at sugar. You're going to start looking at other things in your life that you should get rid of as well that's causing you discomfort. And once you get to this place to where you feel really good, right? You're going to start thinking about how do I maintain this now? So I know I said I was only going to do it for a week, but how about I just make this a weekly thing? How about I now make this a monthly thing? How do about I now make this a yearly thing? And that's why it starts with small wins that become bigger victories. So it's what can I do every single day? You understand me? That has a snowball effect and a compound effect, right? That becomes a better life. So meditating, I think, is the number one thing that all peoples around the planet should do. If you don't want to do it, here's the thing: you just don't get the benefits. I think
Mm,
people like to be told things that are easy, but those are never the things worth doing. It is the things that are hard that build up your willpower, right? And so meditation, soon as you wake up, before you do anything, I would put on some binaural beats, put some headphones in if you must, right? And or if you have the opportunity, go ground. These are very simple things to go put your feet on the ground for the first 30 minutes of the day. It's going to bring those cortisol levels down so you don't have that anxiety throughout the day and you're not stressed. Because
mhm,
here's the 3 C's that I focus on. And this is the way that most people try to do it, and this is the wrong order. They first focus on capability, right? What can I do, right? Which is your skills, your gifts, your talents. Then the next one is capacity. What can I focus on right now? You understand me? Or what can I do right now, rather, right? What even bandwidth that I have to any complete any of these things? I might have a great ability to write, but I might not have the capacity right now because I don't have the internal focus at the moment,
mm,
right? And then we focus on clarity, right? Clarity is what you actually can focus on right now. And what are you focusing on right now? And so if you started backwards though, if you start from clarity first, then you go into your rituals. All right. What are things that's going to give me more clarity? So we write down a goal, we write down the problem, right? We go to a loved one, or we go to a wise one, or we learn something, we educate ourselves. So we get more clarity on the problem that we need, whether it's a financial problem, right? Why am I overspending? What is my goal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then we go to capacity. That's when you enter into the meditation, because the meditation and doing a cold plunge or working out or running or eating correctly or taking adaptogens and nootropics, right? Such as, we got our Supermind coffee. These are things that help build greater capacity by increasing your cognitive functions. So you have your cognitive rituals, things you eat for your stomach. You understand me? Making sure that you have well balanced mood regulation. So that oftentimes look like changing the way you eat, changing what you listen to, changing a multitude of different things so that you increase your capacity.
Mhm.
Then we can now focus on your capabilities. All right, what can you actually do? Because a phone that doesn't have any space, right, it doesn't matter what it's capable of, it can't do anything. And
Yeah.
most of us right now, we have to make tens of thousands of decisions every day, small decisions to big decisions. And it pulls from your decision making battery. It's not that you're not a highly capable individual of dealing with your life at a high level and being very functional. It's just that you haven't given yourself enough room and enough space and enough capacity to be able to execute anything,
Mhm.
right? And so I would focus on capacity and clarity, right? Where old world was all about capability. I don't need you to work harder. I need you to think better, right?
Yeah.
And I need you to have a more clearer mind when you're thinking, so you're focusing on the things that matter. So I'll focus on those 3 C's: capacity, capability, and clarity.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I know we have to get you out of here. That was invaluable to us. The 3 C's, that was invaluable to us. And I also wanted to highlight the fact that you have created some very, very tangible tools that help the power of the mind. And this is your Supermind coffee. If you could tell the people where we can find that, where we can get that, and why it's the best on the market, because I did actually see you in Chicago and I had some and it was great.
Okay. Yes. So Supermind is literally a brainchild of mine. um, and it grew out of need because we grew up on media driven narratives that actually destroy our cognitive function.
Hmm.
Almost everything that we do is living in the opposite manner. We go to clubs and these are spaces of disconnection. Can't hear, excuse me, you can't hear nobody, yet you want to meet people, right? And so we then drink liquor, and then we forget most of the memories that we had. And then we wake up hungover trying to recover from our night before, right? And so the reason that we started drinking in the first place, and it's funny, I was talking to some young ladies who's also doing a beverage company that is non-alcoholic, and is explaining that alcohol is connected to so many traumatic things, right? To sexual assault, right? To waking up with hangovers, to car crashes, right? To violence, so many things. Addiction are connected to alcoholism, and alcoholism is an industry, right? And so the liquor companies, they pay Hollywood to program images and ideas that connect us to the ritual of drinking alcohol and the social spaces and the so-called popularity, or being a man and drowned in a bar or a shot, right? Toughness is connected to alcohol, even though alcohol is a poison. And this is how most of our reality is set up, where we're taught to favor things that are poisons to us in favor of capitalism so that we can profit off of it. And
Mhm.
so, in one spectrum, we may say we hate cancer, right? We hate Alzheimer's and we hate all these different things, but it's like your very rituals don't say that, because you're paying for these things every single day, right? We
Right.
say we want people to be more connected, but the spaces that we go to encourage disconnection and not real connection, not intimacy and authenticity, right? And so, we're also living in a time where the world feels like it's moving faster than most minds can keep up with. Yet, especially in the Black community, I see other communities, they trending in wellness, but the problem is that trend in wellness is not increasing the actual well-being of the world, right?
Mhm.
And so this is where we focus on deep cognitive rituals that will actually help develop a better brain for clearer thinking and clearer mind, which gives you a better life. And so we focus on lion's mane and adaptogen, things that are nootropics and adaptogens, things that are helping the brain with neuroplasticity, with memory, with cognitive function, helping increase capacity so you can do more things within the day. And I believe that if we have this cognitive revolution or renaissance where we focus on changing up our rituals, going through alternative methods, because you can drink at night, but it doesn't have to be wine, it doesn't have to be liquor, right? You could be utilizing different remedies that will put you in a very calm, euphoric state, give you the same exact vibe that you're looking for in liquor. It's just that it hasn't been profitable to give you an alternative because there's an industry that makes billions off of it. But
Right.
you suffer. So all of that long-winded to say, coffee, and ours mushroom coffee, and some of the other things that we have. Supermind is not just a beverage brand, of course. It's not just a nootropic brand. It's also a platform that is about community, right? And it's also a platform that we're building out technology on the back end that helps with the burnout of the culture. It helps with our decreased capacity, right? It helps allowing us to have the minds that can function in the future. So we want your mind to be more capable, have greater capacity in a time where you're going to need every ounce of neuron firing, so that when you hear about a new tool, you hear about cryptocurrency, right? You know you're capable of investing because you know you're smart, but do you have capacity? So now you don't want to pick up something new and learn because you don't feel like it. No, we want you to feel like it. We want you to wake up with these rituals. You want to have a high level conversation with somebody, go take a sip of that Supermind. You want to go learn a new tool, go take a sip of that Supermind. You understand me? Or utilize tools that come from our company. So this is about creating a renaissance within our culture to where our brain power and our intellect, we train that the same way we train for every other thing. Physical athleticism has been very high, but what about cognitive athleticism?
Yeah.
That has been something that we have been focusing on, and that's what Supermind is about bringing to the forefront. So this is some of the greatest coffee in the world because number one, how it tastes is instant. All you have to do is pour hot water. We created the concoctions for you. We have teas coming, we have chocolates, we have gummies, right? We have a multitude of different things, and it's all just about the better you.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. Well, you all heard him. You all
Go
heard
to
90s.
supermind.com.
Supermind.com for you all to get the coffee. He has downloaded for us a lot of tools in terms of forward thinking, cognitive wellness to enhance this cognitive renaissance. And he will be on tour. And so I suggest you all going onto the website to grab tickets to his tour that is coming to a city near you. And if it's not coming to a city near you, 19 Keys, I sure hope that you all add some cities to the cities that you need to go to. So it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the conversation. We enjoy you and we send blessings your way as you continue to move forward.
Thank you very much, Simone. You have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.